Lindsey is an American sexologist and video blogger. She received her Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, there it is again, as well as her Master's of Science in Health and Human Performance with a 4.0 GPA at the University of Montana. She received her Doctor of Human Sexuality in Sexology at the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality. As a clinical sexologist, Lindsey founded and works at Birds and Bees, which focuses on sexual health issues and goals within the community. She also serves as an adjunct faculty for the University of Montana, and she now hosts the popular YouTube channel Sexplanations, which has close to 200,000 subscribers. Tonight, at the end of Lindsey's talk, she'll be fielding questions. I'll remind you that you can tweet questions to us at @WiskAtheists with the hashtag FTF4, or you can step up to the microphones on either end. You'll be able to ask your questions that way. She'll also be at the post-event gathering tonight if you want to ask her personal questions. She's also willing to meet people during lunch tomorrow between noon and 1. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Lindsey Doe.
For those of you who don't know, my name is Lindsey Doe, and I was given the amazing opportunity to be a sex educator for YouTube producers Hank and John Green. How many of you know the Green brothers or are aware of them? Okay, yeah, they're really cool people. They do shows like Vlog Brothers, Crash Course, SciShow, Crash Course Kids, SciShow Kids. They're involved with Mental Floss and Lizzie Bennett Diaries, which took the Jane Austen story and turned it into a vlog version. They've done Brain Scoop, and they also have the Healthcare Triage, just endless education channels online. And they picked me up as their sex educator, and so I have a channel on YouTube called Sexplanations, where I share their 4-minute kind of model of teaching the universe about sex ed, and we call it sex edutainment because it's supposed to be endearing as well. So here is just a page of some of the thumbnails that show you the diversity of the material that I cover on the channel, and you probably can't see it, but these are some of the numbers. These are about a year old, so things are similar, but they're not exactly the same. I would say in range, videos go from about 30,000 hits for something like HIV testing to 600,000 hits for something like anal sex. So we haven't really figured out our priorities clearly, or maybe we have, but there's definitely a full spectrum education that's happening there, the comprehensive education that I hope you free thinkers understand is really important. All right, so here I am, here we are. Awesome, yay! Thank you to all of you for being here and for valuing what your community is doing to bring free thinkers together. And I also want to thank AHA for inviting me here, because that's really, really cool. So can we give them a round of applause, please? Things got jumbled around here in transition, but so you know, my professional life is the internet. It exists in the world of the internet. So if you want to participate in that part of my life as well, the YouTube channel is youtube.com/sexplanations, and then my Twitter is LTD, which are my initials, Lindsey Takara Doe. You have a Japanese restaurant that's Takara. Did you know that? So cool for me. Takara is Japanese for treasure. And then Tumblr is Tumbling Doe, and Facebook, Sexplanations again. You have my permission to record me, photograph me, tweet all the cool things that you are learning at this conference, because I would love to see them from your eyes. Okay, so at the beginning of every presentation, I like to say that you do not have to have sex to experience this presentation. You do not have to have sex at all. You do not have to have sex because you experience this presentation. I hope this presentation improves your sexuality, including those of you who identify as asexual. And if you haven't heard this term before, asexual is, in my world, is not species that reproduce in and of themselves. It's referring more to the absence of sexual attraction. So people who do not experience varying levels of sexual attraction, and there's a lot on that community. They're very well organized. You can go to asexuality.org and check out their community. And then the last piece here, which is really important to me, is self-care. So if at any time you need to leave, call a friend, go to the bathroom, do what you do to take care of yourself, please do that. Okay, so what I would like to do then is have you pair up. I realize this room is laid out vertically this way, but if you can face someone in the audience, please. What I would like you to do now, so if you don't have a partner, please try to find one, because I think this is an important exercise. You are excused from participating, though, if you opt out. Identify a person A and a person B. Okay. So person A, ask person B, may I touch your shoulder? Person B, say no. Okay. You're so respectful. I'm so impressed. Sometimes I work with audiences who are like, no, and then they just punch each other. All right. Person B, ask person A, may I pat your head? Person A, say no. All right. So successfully tonight, all of you have experienced saying no to someone and have experienced receiving a no from someone. Yes? Yes. Excellent. And you've all survived. This is great. Because in our culture, we don't always get that. I think often we think that we have to put words around a no, or we say things like sure when we mean I don't want to do that, but I'll just give you permission anyway because maybe you're going to do it anyway. And so I love empowering groups to know that they will survive if they are rejected, and they will survive if they reject someone, and that the other person will survive if they reject someone. Okay, stay with your partner. Person A, I'm going to have you ask person B if you can touch their knee, and person B, you have I'll give you three options. You can say yes if you mean yes. You can say no if you mean no. And you can say I don't know. Person A, if person B says I don't know, what do? You don't touch them. Good job. Okay, what I have eliminated from this is something that we often do, which is to say sure, no shores. I want there to be a commitment there. In my household, I have a 14-year-old daughter, and she is just the coolest. And when I ask her something like, hey, do you want to go for a bike ride? If she says sure, then mom says sure yes or sure no. And then daughter says sure yes. And that is because I want her to really back whatever her decision is. She can hesitate, but if she's going to hesitate, it needs to be an I don't know, not this loose kind of icky thing of sure. So this is the eradication movement by Dr. Doe to remove the word sure. All right, so person A, ask person B, may I touch your knee? Person B, choose one of those three options. Okay, do you all still survive? Some of you got your knees patted and you're happy, and some of you didn't get your knees patted and you're still happy because you did something really brave. Awesome, that's really cool. Person B, ask person A, may I touch your hair? Person A, you get those three options. Oh, you're such a great group. That's so wonderful. All right, we got it? Fun. So, in James' speech, which was so beautiful, he reminded me that listening is really important, And listening to me is another form of curiosity. It's when you care about the things that you don't understand. And at the end of almost all of my videos, they have the tagline, "Stay curious," because that is how I believe anything is going to move forward. When I think about the really super nasty things that are being said on the interwebs right now, or when I think about the cases that James brought up, I think, yeah, curiosity. If we can push ourselves to be interested or investigate in what is going on and develop our understanding of situations, then we get to solutions that are outside of A or B dynamics. We find more than one or two options, and that's super valuable. So I'm going to give you some examples in sexology history, so the study of sex, where we didn't get it right, but because we stayed curious, we have some newer, more correct information. And hopefully that will inspire you to have your own curiosity, either about your bodies or your sexualities or your lives in general. Okay?
Yeah.
You all know that I am here because I work in the sex studies field, yes? Like, you're not surprised that we're talking about sex. Like, some of you are looking at me. What? Okay. I do want to teach you this, though. Just really quickly. This person, Olivia Judson, wrote a book, and she pretends to be a sex columnist for different species, and then you can learn about the human species because of how she's answering these questions. And in her preface, she says, "In my business, I get asked a lot of questions. Many of them concern matters beyond the wildest human imaginings, but the most common question is mundane enough: why did I become a sex expert? Quite simply, I decided to dedicate myself to sex when I realized that nothing in life is more important, more interesting, or more troublesome." So I'm going to get that off the table, because I think when I'm speaking to groups, the thing that they're initially most curious about is why I'm doing this. And it's very similar to this, but also because I like to think that we go into fields of interest that we're good at. All right. Also, I'll say it that one of the most intriguing questions I've been asked was whether or not vegans could swallow. Still to this day. Okay, so we have this sexologist, Havelock Ellis, and I'm going to tell you a little story about him, using angry face here. He lived during the Victorian era, when it was believed that masturbation was not only sinful, but, according to the medical community, deadly. And so he was not masturbating because he didn't want to die, and he was not having sex at this time. I think he was around 12, 13. And so he was experiencing nocturnal emissions. If you haven't had great sex education up until this moment, nocturnal emissions are wet dreams. At night, the body either releases lubrication, as in a vulva or a biosex female is going to lubricate, or in the case of a biosex male, intersex, has an erection and then ejaculates semen. Okay, because the body wants to release this fluid, and if it's not happening from alternative sources, then it will do it during sleep. Nocturnal, right? We've got this. Okay, so he's experiencing nocturnal emissions, and the medical field says, "Well, Ellis, Havelock, you are essentially starting to die. This is probably caused from the same thing that causes gonorrhea, and your symptoms now will eventually manifest as insanity, blindness, and then death." Gonorrhea, by the way, I just want to put this out there because I think that it's interesting, is a bacterial infection, which means you can treat it with antibiotics. But back then, they didn't know how to treat it. And in between not knowing at all And now they thought that the solution, or at least one of the theories on what they thought, was to take the penis and place it between two boards and then smash the infection out, which is why gonorrhea has been called the clap. It's not chlamydia as the clap because it sounds the same, it's because gonorrhea was treated with the clap. So this is what Havelock had to look forward to, death, and so he is really upset about it. And he's contemplating suicide, but he's not ready to do that. He's not even sure that that's something he can bring himself to do. So in his sweaty tension and contemplation, he decides that he is going to document his demise. He's going to start journaling everything that happens to him physiologically over the time period that it takes for him to pass. And nothing is happening to him. Nothing is happening to him. He's not blind. So now he's furious. And in the case of Havelock, he decided to go himself to medical school and devote his entire career to making sure that he was educated and educated others so that they would not have to go through the same experience of misinformation that he did. Round of applause. Awesome. He's so awesome. He inspires me, at least. And I try to do the same thing. I have had my own experiences with really poor sex education and have fought my way through understanding that so that I can help other people as well. I do that a lot in my private practice and when I'm teaching. Here's another example. This is an illustration by, anybody know? Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci. I think it's gorgeous. It's also very telling. Some of the things that I've read about it are that the cadavers used at the time to understand what was going on with bodies were coming from the prison system, and a lot of them were males. So you have a more complete biosex male on the right here, but with biosex females, they didn't really know what was going on, and there was also some taboo about cutting them apart. And so from at least the vagina up, they have no idea what's going on, except that they presumed the nipples were attached to the vagina. All right, so this shows here, do we have a pointer? We do, that the penis during coitus, or another word for sex, is going directly into the vagina here. And I think based on experience alone, some of you would say, yeah, okay, kind of like what James said in his presentation. If you haven't experienced it otherwise, then it probably isn't real. If you haven't experienced homophobia, then homophobia must not exist. But when we actually did this scan centuries later, what we find is that the penis actually curves at almost a right angle into the body. And so some of you are having genital complexes here where you're thinking, that is not what is happening to my body. That's okay. This is called cognitive disequilibrium in my field, or in all education, where something that you thought to be true is challenged by new information. And so if you feel wobbly, that's why. It's not actually because something automatically happened to your penis. Here we have a replica of the first ever microscope. It's not this large. It is actually about that tall, maybe, yeah, the length of a finger. And it was invented by this gentleman, Antony van Leeuwenhoek, in 1677. He did his first views of it, or views with it, with his assistant Johann Hamm, and I think this is amazing. I'm going to see if you can put it together on your own. The first things that were seen under the first microscope were blood cells and spermatozoa. So, in the subject of curiosity, here's how I imagine this looks, if you haven't already put this together in your mind. Johann and Antony are hanging out in their lab. We just invented this thing. Let's see if it works. What do we have to put under the microscope? I'll cut myself and you masturbate. The things we've done for science. Okay, I think that this is the last example I give. This, by the way, does anybody know what this is? I know it's a PowerPoint illustration that I made a long time ago. It's a vulva. It's not a vagina. The vagina is an internal structure right here. You cannot see the vagina, but you can see the introitus, which is the entrance. This is a vulva. It's external female, biosex female. Genitalia, you have all sorts of parts. This is the mons veneris, which is the mountain of Venus, covered by pubic hair. You have the labia majora, labia minora. This kind of in-between area is called the vestibule, or the porch to the vagina. And then two separate holes here. One where babies and blood and eggs and lubricant come out, the vagina. And then another, the meatus, which goes up to the urethra. Down here, I think it even moves. Ooh, that's a clitoral hood. There's the anus. This is the anus. And between the two, there's a perineum, which is a small space that separates the vulva from the anus. Okay. Oh, also, if you didn't know, this star represents the clitoris. And this is a hood, which is foreskin. So the same way that a biosex male has foreskin when it is born, if it hasn't been removed, biosex females have identical tissue, prepuce, foreskin. How are we doing on time? Okay.
About a half hour.
Awesome. Does somebody have a hood? And is somebody wearing a sweatshirt and can come join me on stage? Anybody with a sweatshirt who can volunteer to come hang out with me on stage? Person in the Navy? Or, okay, both of you can come up. Come be my conic collaborators. Does anybody have tissues? No tissues. Okay, well, if we round it. You have a handkerchief and it's clean?
Napkins?
I would go with are the napkins clean? Yes, please, napkins.
They were meant in case I spilled my soda, which I didn't do.
Okay, we're good. Crunchy smegma. Okay, so, what is your name?
Brendan.
Brendan, I'm Lindsay. It's great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
All right, so Brendan is going to be a vulva for us this evening. Yeah!
First time for everything.
Yeah. Below the stage is the anus. And your feet come together, the perineum. And then between your legs is the vaginal introitus. Okay? Belly button is going to be the meatus where the urine comes out.
All right.
Okay? You've got this part is the vestibule, and your arms can represent labia.
All right.
Okay. Can you put your hood up for me, or can I? Yeah, you've got it. Okay, so one set of lips or labia here actually comes up and goes over the clitoris. The clitoris is the sweet spot here, full of nerve endings, very, very sensitive. So if you have been told this is what you want to touch during pleasurable behavior, and you should touch it with your finger or toy or penis, what that's like, or can be like for the person on the receiving end, is something equivalent to my leg, right? Finger, clit. And so that's like getting kicked in the face, right? Or at least footed in the face. And so one of the sexual enhancement things that I teach is that instead of doing that, you would use two legs and put them on either side, using the hood to stimulate the glans or the head of the clitoris. Is everybody with me? Oh, so many of you who look like women are smiling huge right now. Yay! You're going to go home and have great sex. Okay, so one of the other things that we're not taught is that the same way our noses release sebum, blackheads, we get blackheads during puberty, and we start to sweat and things like that. Our genitals do something similar. And so in between the glands, are you smelling my lotion? The glands are the head of the clitoris, and this hood there is sebum that is released, which is a nice lubricating fluid to keep the head moist and fresh and also act as an anti-friction. Okay. But if it is left there, then it turns into this cheese-like white gunk that builds up. And this is called smegma, which some of you may have heard in the Cards Against Humanity edition that has smegma.
I explain that one every time.
Oh, you know? Well, good. I'm glad that you have the education to do so. Like, this is the cheese-like substance that builds up under the foreskin in penises and clitori. That's not what you say.
That's not exactly how I put it.
Okay, well, that's the short version, or the clinical one. And if that is left there too long, it can turn into more of a sand meets Elmer's glue and cause adhesion. So at this point, the clitoral hood, are you okay with this person taking a picture of you?
Yeah.
Okay. The clitoral hood adheses to the clitoris, and that can happen at multiple degrees. So sometimes like this, right, where there isn't really even access to the clitoris. So sometimes like this. So varying degrees, and it is very difficult to separate the two at that point. When I first started learning about this, the solution was numbing it and then using a scalpel. And now we're hoping that it can be solved through lots and lots of warm baths and gentle separation. But either way, this can be really painful, and it can be totally avoided if we have that education piece early on, so that as sebum starts to build up, we can teach kiddos to pull back their foreskins and remove said smegma. You've all learned something, I can tell. Okay, don't go yet. I think, let's see. Haha. This is another area where we erred, and we're still very, very feisty over this particular thing. What is going on here is that, your name is Brendan?
Yeah.
Brendan's head is what we thought was the clitoris up until 1998. We thought that's all there is to it. It's just like a tiny little penis, and here it is, 8,000 nerve endings packed into a tiny little baby carrot, right? But in 1998, what we found is that the structure is actually more complex, and so beneath the sweatshirt, kind of in Brendan's sleeves, are roots that go down into the body. I did an episode this week on Sexplanations that explains how a lot of the debate about vaginal orgasms may lead to the fact that you think it's penetrative and it's happening here, but it's very possible that what's happening is that either the tug of the labia inward like this is tugging on the clitoral hood this way, and or that inside the internal legs of the clitoris are being stimulated. Oh, okay. Thank you for your help.
My pleasure.
We want to add I to the conversation too. So I think many of you may be familiar with the letters of the alphabet soup. What's L?
Lesbian.
And G? And B? Bisexual, sometimes bigender. T? Transgender, sometimes two-spirit. There's also Q for queer, and Q for questioning, and A for allies, and A for asexual, and K for kink, and the number 2 for two-spirit, and the list goes on and on and on. And there's I, which is intersex. Inter meaning between. So when you hear the word intercourse, that does not mean inter as in inside the body, it means between two people. And here, this is referring to a type of bisexuality, or the person's gender, chromosomes, chromosomes, genetics, anatomy, etc., being between a bisex male and between a bisex female. All right, can I give the rest to questions so that you can be curious? How much time do we have?
Probably 20 minutes.
Ooh, fun. Okay.
All right, we have 20 minutes for questions. So again, you can step up to the aisles, either microphone, and you can ask Lindsey anything.
Yeah, you can.
We will alternate if there are people there. So go ahead. It should be. No.
There we go. I was curious, I know that the male circumcision started, I think, in the early 1800s to discourage sexuality, and that we also have seen that it does reduce contraction of HIV. What my question is it useful? Should we continue doing it? And if not, what's the best way to deal with that?
Well, you just tapped into my most precious subject ever. So it didn't start in the 1800s. It happened way, way, way before that, but we kind of revived it because if you have a foreskin, like Brendan's clitoral hood, then it's much easier to get off and masturbate and, oh, that feels good. So if we remove that, oh, that feels good, then maybe we can prevent masturbation, which is why you had Sylvester Graham inventing graham crackers and Harvey Kellogg inventing cornflakes, because they thought that these really bland, gross tasting things are going to suppress your sex drive and then you're not going to touch yourself. Little did they know that later we would add sugar and then we would all want to touch ourselves. But at the time, that's what was going on. There was tons of propaganda being published by an individual named Tussaud, and a lot of it was anti-onanism propaganda. So I don't know how much you know about the Bible, but there is a story about a gentleman named Onan, N-O-A-N, and in this story, he is the younger brother of a man who has passed away, and in that culture, it was expected that you marry or partner with the widow, and then you have a child, and then that child then takes the throne or the patriarchy of the older brother. Are you following so far? Okay, so Onan was like, man, I don't want to be the king dude. And when he went to have sex with his sister-in-law widow, he externally ejaculated. So it's called coitus interruptus, interrupting sex, and he withdrew and spilled his seeds on the ground. And this was a sin, according to God, because you're supposed to give the throne to the child. But what was interpreted is that he masturbated, and ergo, masturbation is bad. So it became like a medical thing, and then it's a really long answer, but I'm going to go with it. And so it became a medical thing. They were constantly taking the pursuit of removing foreskin and stopping masturbation into the medical field to say, what can we say this prevents? And this is tracked really well, and it's really scary, and it hurts my heart a whole ton, because the same way that I want Brendan to choose whether or not he keeps the hood on his sweatshirt, and I want my daughter to have her genitals intact until she chooses otherwise, I want the same thing for the biosex males that are born all around the world. I remember being in my early 20s and sitting at my HIV prevention educator job, and the email came that circumcision prevents HIV. This is a huge thing. I could talk for hours on this, but the short of it is they didn't finish the study. The research is super broken, and what's fascinating, if you look into the foreskin, is that it has Langerhans cells, which are attractants to HIV. They're like, hey, HIV, come over here, come and get me. And then they trap it. So here we're going and we find, oh, Langerhans cells, they're attracting HIV. This is way bad because now we're going to have more of it. And not paying attention to, yeah, but then the cells are going after the ant trap in your kitchen and not your food. I I'm not super, it's not my thing anymore. I mean, it is my thing personally, passionately, professionally, but I wouldn't say that I am the go-to person on it. Did I answer your question?
So you're against it?
Yes! I am against the routine circumcision. If you, as an adult person, say, I don't want that here, I'd be like, okay. But someone else making that choice for you, not cool.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Question on the left side. My left, your right.
I will be more succinct this time, I promise.
Hello. You can take all the time. We got like 15 minutes.
Okay,
Girl,
cool.
You're good. My question is, I try not to, but sometimes I think back to when I was 14, and it wasn't pretty, and it stresses me out now just thinking back to those glory days. But you said your daughter is around that age, and I'm just kind of wondering what dear old daughter thinks about your profession, because I know it's a difficult age and it's a difficult profession, and I just wanted to know what her, like, what you know of her feedback is.
Yeah, I'm gonna cry. So
Sorry.
you're okay. She is my third daughter. I became a licensed foster mom maybe 10 years ago, and so I raised a 17-year-old, and then she is my second, and then I have a third who is actually in a higher level of care, so maybe technically not my daughter anymore. And so my 14-year-old is my daughter. I have adopted her. I just adopted her in December, and I know that she gives me a hard time because it feels good to have that relationship with your mom, to be like, you're drawing another vulva, or you're making little clay clitorises while we're trying to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And she teases me. And so I just assumed, like, yeah, you're annoyed, but I pay for your braces because I do what I do. And I have a personal channel called Doe Eyes, and one of the episodes I asked both daughters, the daughters that were in my house at the time, what they thought of my job. I did so off camera, and I did not know what they were going to say. And you can watch it. She blew my mind. She said something like, Mom, I'm really glad that you do what you do because not everyone gets this sex education and they really need it. It's like, oh, what? And I took her, we went to the Banff Film Festival in Banff, Canada, which was awesome. And while we were there, I went and spoke at the University of Calgary, and so tagged her along, and she sat in the audience for the first time ever. And it was so cool afterward for her to just be like, yeah, that's my mom. So I think she thinks it's awesome right now. She's constantly telling me how much she loves me because she's really hurt and really scared and really grateful. So if you don't know what's happening, I'll tell you. I'm not being succinct. On the Doe Eyes channel, which is my personal vlog that I use to improve my craft as an editor and a videographer, because I don't do that for Sexplanations, a man named Nick does. I did a video where I address a boy who had been harassing my daughter at school. I didn't use his name. I didn't mean for anything to go viral or anything like that. I just said, hey, boy who likes my daughter, I understand why you like her, and I understand why you keep asking her. It's because in our culture we teach you to pursue what it is that you want, never give up, do it again and again. But what you're doing is harassing her. Please stop. Instead, journal, talk to adults and friends. Well, this video got picked up by Upworthy, Jezebel, CBS, NBC, Yahoo, every big media conglomerate you can think of. And with that comes a public that is not a fan of that, think that it is very appropriate to harass women until they say yes, and they actually think that it's part of the game, that it's the chase, and how dare I challenge this form of romance. And so she and I are getting a lot of hate right now, and it is very cool that in the midst of that, she can still trust me to make decisions with her regarding sexual health and relationships. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. James Croft, do you have a question?
I'm returning the favor. I thought since I live in St. Louis, which I understand was a hub of sexology in the day, that I should ask a question, but now I have to think of one. You may have answered this while I was out of the room recovering from my own talk, so my apologies.
No worries.
But I feel very passionately about sex education in schools. And I think it not only totally sucks, but it doesn't even get close to not sucking. And I would want to know what you would change if you could wave a magic wand about sex education in schools.
No more lying.
Let's leave it at that. That sounds good.
Yeah, like let's start there. There are some really great videos on Sexplanations where I asked people what they were experiencing in their sex education programs, and they flooded my Tumblr inbox, and then I was heartbroken in a different way than I am now, and I did 3, I think, response videos, but something like, here's a container of Oreos. Now you pass it around the room. If you break the Oreo, then that is like having sex with someone and you have lost your virginity and now nobody wants the broken cookie. And I was like, I'm not a cookie. So I let the internet have it, which I rarely do. But if that is something that you care about, sex education happening effectively, check out how it's not happening in those videos. It's really helpful. And I realized that I didn't show you what I do. Can I show you real quick? Okay. Can I show? Yeah. Is there a way to easily do this?
I'm going to sit down.
Whoa.
The Wi-Fi is outside.
Can I just be a guest?
Yes, that works.
Okay, do you have a question while I pull this up?
Me? Mm-hmm. Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you for what you do because I think it's awesome that you educate people on a subject that's often taboo and people aren't very educated about, which I'm sure you know and is why you do what you do.
I want to apologize first for not looking at you.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
While we talk, but I hear you and I appreciate what you're saying.
Cool. I am curious if you could elaborate more on the topic of female ejaculation and squirting and maybe the science behind it or what exactly it is. Because I think it probably surprises a lot of women, or maybe a lot of women and men aren't very aware of what it is.
Yes, I can. Can someone else fix this? Yes. I have an episode on it. Yay, I've done my work. And what I can tell you is that we don't know. Sometimes we don't care about learning about what's going on sexually because our culture is super jammed up about it. And then we really don't care what's going on sexually for women because I care. And so the video outlines how there's a study that came out that said it's urine, and then there's a study that came out, or an article that came out that said, why is it that I can't tell you something and you trust me to be honest about my own body and my own experience? And then I talked about my own experiences with squirting and learning about female ejaculation, and then I talked about why we don't have more information. If you don't know, inside the vagina, there is a very debated area that has been called the G-spot after Grafenberg, the Skene's gland, periurethral tissue, female prostate. It has lots of different names. And if that is stimulated, then the person may produce anywhere from a dribble of clear liquid to gushing fluid that goes across the room and hits the wall. And when I first got into this field, I was doing editing work for a channel called, not a channel, a website called allaboutsexuality.org, and my supervising editor got this post that said, "What is this stuff that's coming out of women's porn?" And he said, "There's an apparatus that's been put in them, it's not real." And being someone who can squirt, I was like, what? And so it became a big, important deal to me, just like with Havelock. My own thing is to say, hey, there's nothing, no, you're not peeing, first of all. And second of all, there's nothing bad or wrong about what you're doing. That, then I will say, is a little different than true female ejaculation, which is much more like semen, and is also not bad or wrong or pee. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
For some reason, neither of the Wi-Fis are working, so
Okay.
there's nothing I can do.
You all have access to the internet, I hope, and you can check it out later. Yes?
Question on our right.
Please
Hi.
feel free to tell me when I need to go away.
So recently on my Facebook page, someone shared an article that basically quoted some statistics. I'm not 100% sure how much they cherry picked these or whatever, but basically was asking about how, or showing that if you offered people birth control, the rate of abortions went up in the area, and so that we should go to pure abstinence and no one should be having sex or using any sort of birth control. And I'm just kind of curious what your opinion is of this. I thought it was an interesting article to read. We'll leave it at that. But.
Okay. What comes to mind is a conversation that I recently had with my mother, who is awesome. I don't remember her being awesome because I was an adolescent girl once, but as two adult women, she has my back, unlike anything I've ever seen. And she talked about those statistics a little, which are correlation, not causation, if they exist. Because I tried to find them, and I wasn't able to. And what I'm going to try and postulate is that it has a lot to do with political climate. So if the political climate is such that abortion is bad, get rid of it, and contraception isn't available, get rid of it, and then we have a political climate that says, here's contraception, and it's okay if you make the decision to not have, to not go through with a pregnancy, then those numbers increase. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. Condoms do not make more babies. Yes. I can tell you that for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
And last question over here.
Okay, so first of all, I'm a huge fan of your channel, but and the whole everything done by the Green Brothers.
Yeah, because they're awesome.
Say hi. But as a fellow nerd fighter, you've probably heard the term increasing awesome and decreasing suck before as kind of their motto to everything that they can, like any sort of activism or anything that they do. How do you kind of balance in a sex education context, like decreasing the suck of things like the horrible sex education myths that people like populate, and increasing awesome in ways like, you know, giving people actual helpful advice rather than spending all of our time just fighting a wave of misinformation? How do you balance those?
I think you're asking me how to increase awesome and decrease world suck at the same time?
Yes.
Which I call sex suck, but yes. How do I do that? James, where are you, James? Are you still here? Okay. He doesn't know that I've been fawning on him all night. But as James said, part of the awesome is the listening and the curiosity, and the way that that looks in a measurable form is to watch all of Sexplanations and learn what is accurate and learn how to communicate it, because I model that for you so that you can have it and pass it on. On the decrease world suck part, I would say don't be a troll, and educate yourself, protect yourself, get tested. I don't imagine any of you are really sucky, so My balance tool there is I just do the next first thing, and I hope that it falls in one of those areas.
Awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, thank you all.